There
Hello
we
and
go.
welcome to the 45th episode of Circus History Live. I'm Bruce Hawley, president of the Circus Historical Society. Circus History Live is produced monthly by the CHS. Recordings of previous sessions are available on the CHS YouTube channel. Our guest for today's program is none other than Circus Daredevil and Ringmaster Joseph Dominik Bauer. And now, without further ado, here's the host of Circus History Live, CHS Vice President Chris Berry. Chris?
Thanks a lot, Bruce. We have a lot to talk about tonight, both in the way of circus history of today and of the past. And we are very privileged to have Joseph Bauer Jr. With us tonight. He is a ringmaster, as you said. He is a daredevil. And right now, he is in costume because it looks like the show just ended, right, Joseph?
Absolutely. We had a 5 o'clock show here in Toronto and a 1 o'clock and a 5 o'clock. And we literally, the last person just went out and we turned the camera on and this is it. We're still in show, I guess.
Well, the circus is clearly alive and well, and your family has been involved in it for many generations. I know the Bauer family or the Knock family about 5 generations at least.
Yeah.
But let's kind of go back to that. Now, your mother, Elizabeth Knock, she
hmm
married your father, Joseph Bauer Sr., and they came over to
hmm
the United States. But this
Yep.
circus tradition goes back a long ways. I'm going to
Oh,
put up
yeah.
I'm going to put up a photograph here for the folks to see. Now, this is a picture of a couple of clowns. It says Brothers. I guess that's German, right? For that
Uh-huh.
abbreviation at the bottom there.
Yep.
Uh, and so, obviously, very early photograph. Looks like a couple of clowns
Yep.
that could be found anywhere, but these are the folks that were involved with your circus.
Yep. This was from my mother's side of the family, from the Knox, and these were uncles of my mom, and actually one of them was an uncle of my father. And then a lot of times they would get together. There were many times back in the day where they would join forces with their circus. You'll see some photos after where you'll see Bauer and Knock. Or you'll see Circus Bauer or Circus Knock, and our family had many, many different talents. It was up in the air on high wire. It was, the cannon. We had a cannon in our family. We had horse trainers, tiger trainers, and of course, everybody's favorite, the comedians, right?
So right now we've got a photograph up of a wagon. It looks like it was probably built around 1900, if not before.
Mhm.
Couple of horses pulling it. But the
Yep.
thing that pops out to me is the fact that there are a couple of loudspeakers on the top of it. So
Pretty big
uh,
ones.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and that's your father, the kid sitting there, right?
The gentleman that is driving the wagon with the two horses is my father's uncle Walter. And then the little boy sitting next to him is my dad. And he said it was one of his fondest memories to go around with him and go through the different towns and little villages and promote Circus Bauer in that way. He actually would be on the microphone himself once in a while.
So this next photograph here shows it looks like the same wagon. It may be, I think this is a little later, but this is
hmm
in the 1940s.
hmm
Still horse-drawn, still have kids are running along like a
Yeah,
small circus parade. I've
yeah,
got to think that when you look back at this long circus tradition of your
hmm
families, the Bowers, the Knocks,
hmm
1940, 1941, very difficult time in Europe. You were
yes,
Swiss.
yes.
What did your father tell you about those days?
The war was traumatizing for everybody in Europe, but Switzerland being dead center, kind of neutral country, of course, the German soldiers would march through Switzerland. And a lot of the circuses kept going and tried to keep going. And in Switzerland, their family circus kept going. But my dad very vividly would tell me he would have nightmares sometimes because he could hear in the silence through the village the soldiers marching through Switzerland to go to the other side. And so, yeah, it was definitely something that affected him a little bit.
I'm sure it was. Now,
Yeah.
the next photograph here shows a circus tent. There's a car. It looks like it might be a Citroen or something like that. So tell me
Yeah.
what am I looking at here?
That is, I believe on the bottom, it's 1941. And that was in Lucerne, Switzerland. And that was my family, my grandparents' circus. And a lot of people didn't know. And I actually, didn't know too much about it. I've only seen a few photos, but my grandfather was also the ringmaster for their family circus. And for me, it was very special to find that out later in life. They thought I knew, but I never knew until I said, I see someone very tall there with a microphone. They said, well, that's your grandfather. He was the ringmaster. We thought you knew that. So for me, it's extra special to be doing what I've been doing for so long
Absolutely.
now.
And you
Yeah.
have been, you are one of the most notable ringmasters performing today. As we said earlier,
Thank you so much.
Tarzan Zerbini Circus right now in Toronto.
Yeah,
I put a photograph up here, and again, you're at a bit of a disadvantage, so I'll describe it. It looks like a
that's
family.
okay.
I think that might be your father is a tall youngster, and then there looks like your grandfather, maybe some kids down in
Hmm.
front. Did I
Those are
identify?
my, that is my grandfather, Pio Snock, from my mother's side. And that's my Uncle Charlie, my Uncle Eugene, my Uncle Pio, my aunts. The only one that's not in that actual photo because she was too little was my mom.
And
Yeah,
so,
but
of
that is,
course, Charlie and Eugene, they came over with your father, 1954,
hmm, yeah.
joined the Ringling Circus. P.O.
Hmm.
Knock, of course, one of the great
Oh,
clowns,
legend,
uh,
legend.
seen in movies, and of course,
Hmm.
was with Ringling Circus with the
Hmm.
Red Unit in the 1970s.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of that again that long tradition. Did you always feel
Mm.
like you had to be a part of the circus?
Absolutely. It was never forced on me, of course. It was a choice. But I grew up traveling all over the world, and it was something that I admired always the family for, and never was scared, never had any fear of being in front of an audience. And I actually did my very first show 52 years ago in Osaka, Japan. We went there as special guests at the Toshimaya Park with my family's thrill show, which consisted of three sway poles. It consisted of my mom's dive. She did a breakaway dive to a swinging trapeze that would break, and then she would fall to the ground on these bungees. And my sister, at a very young age, was doing her trapeze act. Well, I was just a little guy, and all I was allowed to do was sit on the side of the stage until the directors of the park came and asked my dad, what about him? My dad said, well, he's too young. He doesn't do nothing yet. So they said, but we really would like to have him. They said I resembled Jimmy Osmond for some reason at that time. So they had me run out on stage, and my dad held his arm out, and I did a handstand on his arm after they were all doing their big thrilling acts. And that was my first entry to the audience and the ring. And that's where it all began for me. And I loved it ever since that day. And there's nothing I don't think I'd want to do
You
else.
talk about the sway pole act, and we've
Mm.
had circuit on previous editions of Circus History Live. We've had your cousins
Oh,
Michelangelo
yeah.
and Bello both on to
Yeah.
talk about that. I'm going to share a photograph here now of a. This is a circus tent with
Okay.
a single sway pole. Now it
Okay.
says Circus Bauer. This is
Yep.
something you guys have been doing for a long time.
Hmm. That pole that you see right there is all wood. That is not steel. When my family created these towering sway poles, they were Swiss pine. My uncles would go out in the forest and pick the straightest trees, take them to the place to be trimmed, and they were all in one piece. And that pole that you see there is an uncle of my father's, and uh, that pole right there is wood from the bottom, one piece. And that's how Ringling Brothers would transport these poles when they came to the United States on the train. They had to transport them in one piece. And that's how they were inside the big top, the four nerveless knocks, which was my mom and dad and my uncle Charlie and my uncle Eugene. And sometimes they would get a little dry. The audience could hear them crickling and crackling when they would be swaying. And it was time to send my uncle back to Switzerland to get new sway poles. And then from there, later, they created the sway poles that were steel and high and very high, actually, higher than any ones I've ever seen in my life.
So we've got a photograph here of your father as a young man. He obviously was a tremendous performer himself, but it was
Mm-hmm.
almost like a circus royalty marriage when Joseph Bauer and Elizabeth Knock married in back in Switzerland, right? I mean, that is an amazing story of the two families coming together.
It's such a fairy tale because they, of course, even though the two families really loved each other, they were rival circuses. and they were each wanting to be in that town at that time. And so, and my mom falling in love with my father with another circus, it was very little competitive, and they didn't like when he went there and they didn't like when she went there. And one of the most beautiful stories I ever heard from my mom and dad is they went to a little village, went to a movie theater to see Cecil B. DeMille's Greatest Show on Earth.
Oh,
And
wow.
they were absolutely blown away, enthralled by the grandeur of the Greatest Show on Earth. 10,000 people and how many employees in the movie and how dramatic. They never in their thoughts thought they were going to come to the United States and be featured headlining artists on the bill of the Greatest Show on Earth. So for them to come here at such a young age and be performing in front, for them it was one of his biggest rewards. And when my dad received his Ring of Fame induction, I remember he cried to me and he said, you know,
Well, I know it was an emotional time.
yeah, he said to me, I never thought I'd be receiving this induction the same time that Cecil B. DeMille was receiving his induction. And that just meant the world to him, because I just remember sitting there watching that movie with your mother in that little movie theater. So those are the things that make us, never forget where we come from, never forget those stories. And we got to keep going. We got to keep doing it.
And of course, the Circus Ring of Fame at St. Armand's Circle down in Sarasota.
Uh-huh.
If you haven't been there, we really encourage you to go down. You'll
Oh
see
yeah.
not only Joseph Bauer and the Nerveless Knox, but also Cecil B. DeMille and a lot of other of our circus
So many
greats.
of our family is out there. It's amazing. My father, my brother-in-law, Tarzan Zerbini, the world famous Lord of the Jungle. You'll see my cousin Bello out there, Sylvia Zerbini. This is all of our families and so many more. And boy, I couldn't be prouder. I mean, I couldn't be prouder of our family all out there on that Ring of Fame. For
So
every time I go out there, I get chills.
So I've got a photograph up right now. It's kind of two pictures, right? But it's got the family, 19
Hmm.
arriving. Basically, it looks like it's probably Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And then also the sway pole act up there. And if
Hmm.
you've ever seen any of the Knox do the sway pole, it is quite a thrilling act.
Yeah, to be able to go back to the Greatest Show on Earth in the 80s after my mom and dad and my uncles came to the Greatest Show on Earth, to the old Madison Square Garden, right there in the 50s. And then we end up going back, my father, my sister, my mother, myself, and perform in the new Madison Square Garden and be headlining with the Greatest Show on Earth again. And just thinking, Dad, you realize you played in both Madison Square Gardens. You were at the old one that's now a parking lot, and now you're in this one. And he just, it was great. I'll never forget it. And performing with that circus is always, it's a dream of every artist, uh, but it was really special for me. My sister, she was born on the Greatest Show on Earth, and actually her birth certificate literally said on the address, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, Winter Quarter.
That's great.
Isn't that something?
So the next photograph that I'm putting up here is one that actually you and I didn't go through before the call, but it's your mother is sitting on
Okay.
an elephant, and
Oh yeah.
it's not maybe the one you're thinking of, but it's a great picture of her. She's out there outside. I think
Mhm.
that maybe your father who is standing down next to her there. This is probably, I think this is 1955,
Right.
looking at the costumes and so forth. But
Yes.
they became, I mean, you obviously became Americans, so they must have liked living
Hmm.
in the United States.
They became Americans as quickly as they could, not because they didn't love their homeland, not because they just were absolutely in love with the United States, and they wanted to make their future, their family, the rest of their life here. And that photo was one of Hugo Schmidt's elephants. Hugo Schmidt, I think, had the largest herd of elephants in those days. I think there was
1955 was the biggest, there's 50 elephants on the show
the
that year.
50 elephants. So, and you look, if you have that other photo back in 1982, you'll see her again riding on one of the Circus Williams, Gunther Gable Williams elephants. So we have pictures of her in the 50s and in the 80s. Yeah.
That's fantastic. The next photograph that I'm putting up here, this shows, it's again Madison Square Garden. This is the Nerveless Knox. I think this is probably the first time that they appeared in the United States. It's your
Yes.
dad there with the dark hair, your uncle Eugene and Charlie
Yeah.
Knight, and then Aurelia, your aunt, is in the picture also.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole family, all joined the greatest show on earth, and from there it just our family got huge. We got so many people and so many of my cousins. A lot of us, of course, were not born yet. It was my sister Lisi, and then my cousin Dolly, and my cousin Eugene, my cousin Rebecca, and then I believe it was John, myself, Michelangelo, and Bello. We were a very big family. We ended up, having so many. We were so close, and it was just time after so many years performing together. There were so many people wanting this original presentation of these four sway poles. Now, nobody had ever seen anything like that here. So there were so many contracts coming in. They figured, well, it might be better now that the kids are getting a little older that we, split the family up, and we all went to the Disney show, Disney on Parade. Half of the family was performing on sway poles on the Peter Pan unit. The other half was performing on the Mickey Mouse unit. That's where we went. So it was beneficial for everybody. We didn't like to be apart because we all loved each other very much, but it was the thing we needed to do at that time.
We were talking a little bit about those sway poles themselves and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that, they were however tall they were, 60 feet,
Oh,
whatever.
oh.
And you brought them over. When you would travel
Mm-hmm.
overseas, like, with the
Mm-hmm.
sway poles, how did you
Mm-hmm.
get them to Japan?
Well, those were already steel sway poles, and those were extremely high, and they had to be crated, and then they had to be aircrafted. They got flown there. So actually, my dad in the 70s, he was very scared about sending our stuff like that. So he made sure that we flew on the same aircraft that had the sway poles with them, and that's how it went. We were there for 4 months, and yeah, flying. Stuff can be put in ocean containers, but you lose your equipment for sometimes a month or two. So flying them over there was the best way to get them there and back.
So, we talked about the fact that your family is also known for the Daredevil acts, not just the sway
Mm,
poles. I'm putting up a photograph here right now it's actually a drawing. And
mm.
this is a drawing, it's the patent drawing that Clay Beckett did for the first wheel of
Oh wow!
whatever. Uh, and I know that he designed this. We see it on
Yep.
circuses all over the place now,
Mm,
but it
mm,
was really patented and created by Clay Beckett, who's the one
yeah.
who came up with the idea. But your
Hmm.
father purchased this
Yes.
wheel, right? I mean,
Yes.
it was really
Absolutely.
the first one to get
You
out
know,
there.
the very first time we made an acquaintance, our family did, with Clay Beckett was in Mexico City with the Grand Circo Itaide. My family was performing there, doing our balancing ladder, the four sway poles, my mom's breakaway, the low wire, and Clay Beckett was the first one to come to Mexico City with his wheel. And he was already getting older, and he offered it to my dad. He said, you and your wife, you're young, and you guys have so much energy. And my dad, we had so much equipment at that time. He said, no, he turned him down. Well, later in the 80s, because I had always admired watching the sensational Lees. Lee Heisinger had the sister wheel of what I have. These are the two inventors' apparatuses, original apparatuses. And as a child, I would march right behind the curtain to his music. I remember watching him and just being like, one day I'll be running around something like that. It's just when. And the wheel was actually the original name of the wheel wasn't a space wheel, a wheel of death, a wheel of destiny. It was called Clay Beckett's Giant Swing Loop. That was the name of the wheel. And then
Interesting.
and then from there, the name had changed with the sensational Lees and the orbital wheel or giant wheel of death. And yeah, a lot of names have been put. When I performed the act for so many years, once I got it in the 80s, it was like I was free. It was mine, and now we were going to take it as far as I could. And in the beginning, there were very few. There was only few. There was Elton Bale. There was myself. one of my cousins, and there wasn't many wheels out there. And I ended up being very fortunate. And I know Beckett was proud when he seen that I took it to Monte Carlo with my family, received very good award for that, along with our high wire. I took it to Russia 2 times with Cirque du Soleil for the Olympics, for Sochi and Kazan. Toured all over the United States, Canada, took it to London, Beatles, Daredevils. I mean, I was blessed. The wheel and we had a long run for
And
about
I'm showing some
37 years.
I'm showing some photographs right now of you performing on the wheel, both inside and outside. By the way, speaking of Clay Beckett, when I was doing a little bit of research for
Mhm.
this interview today, I was interested in the patent on that. And
Mhm.
like I said, 1953, he
Mhm.
called it, when he went applied to the patent office, the occupant propelled amusement device. Doesn't really have the same ring as the Wheel of Destiny or whatever, but I guess that the bureaucrats in Washington probably understood that.
Right, right. And from what I heard, and I only go by some of the older circus legends that I spoke to that were acquaintance of him, said that his intention was never to do this in front really of an audience. He was like a physics major. He was a security guard, I heard, near the White House. And it was all about physics. It was to show how you could balance and how you could move forward and change. And I guess somebody seen him and said, wow, this would be really something to do this in front of an audience. And I think that's how it all began, you know,
You know,
from what I hear.
those of us who have not had the thrill, I guess, for lack of a better word, of performing it, like you
Mm,
and your cousins and some of the others have done, I got to tell you, it seems really scary. When you're up there spinning around, and even that you can see what's going on, jumping rope up there and
yeah,
stuff. It
yeah,
You have to practice like crazy, I would think.
yeah. It's all about respect and dealing with the elements. The elements are what always scared me. When I was up on the wheel, myself was just like, I couldn't wait to get on this thing, even though it was only 21 inches wide and it was 55 feet. I needed clearance for me to work the giant wheel. But the elements are what scared me when I performed in an amusement park like Knott's Berry Farm or on top of a rooftop in Sarasota, over 251 feet above, uh, you know, the water and the street. When the dew, the wind, what can just come unexpectedly. Those are the things that make you nervous. Are the elements. Is it going to be right? Is it going to be slippery? And it's time to go. It's time to go. We got to do it. They're waiting. But otherwise, I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
So, sir, you are watching Circus History Live. Our guest is Joseph Bauer Jr., Joseph Dominik Bauer Jr. Is with us today. This is our opportunity to sit down once a month and kind of talk about things that are of interest to those who are interested in circus history of the past and the circus history of today. And fortunately, with Joe Bauer today, we have the opportunity to talk a little bit about both. So, obviously, you made a name for yourself as a daredevil. But now a lot of times we see you dressed like you are right now as a ringmaster. Tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about how that transition happened.
that's still an for me. It was an amazing story. We were on tour. We had left The Greatest Show on Earth, and we were on tour with my brother-in-law Tarzan Zerbini with his show, and we were performing four sway poles, my sister's trapeze, motorcycle on the high wire, illusions. We were doing it all, and we had a ringmaster that was on the tour with us, and we got to the border up in Saskatchewan. I believe it was around 1987, 88, I'm going to say. And something came up and he couldn't come. He had to leave. And he said, I can't come with you guys over the border. I have something I have to take care of. And we were going to Yorkton, Saskatchewan. And my father came to me and said, oh, wow. He says, well, the ringmaster, he's not coming. He can't make it. And I said, well, wow, what are we going to do? And he said, what are we going to do? And I said, oh, I said, well, what do you mean, Dad? He goes, I heard you introduce him every show. Every show I would take the mic and say, please welcome the golden voice of the circus. And then I would go on my way. He said, you're not going to let us down, right? And I said, no, Dad. The way he looked at me, and my mom was like, come on, come on, come on, get your tuxedo and you'll do it. And that was it. We little hockey arena in Yorkton. I went to some of the artists that were on the show, good friends, like the Pages that had started out their flying act, David Zoppi with his Perky Pekingese, and many artists. And I went to them and said, excuse me, I would like your announcements. I'm going to be your host for the circus. And some of them just looked at me and said, oh, the ringmaster always makes them up. And I thought, oh my goodness, I really got my work cut out for me. And I went back to my trailer and I was like sweating bullets. And I just started. It happened like, Herman's head in a way, and went crazy. And I was thinking of all the ringmasters that I had admired, Jim Ragona, Denny McGuire, and I'll even go further back to Count Nicholas, who I very much admired. And there was just so many. Phil McDonald, when I was a child, was an unbelievable ringmaster for Paul Kay. And I started thinking, oh, wow, and my family's introduction. And I got out there and it just came out. I just did it. And I did the first show. And I remember my mom saying, whatever you do, don't look at all your young friends there because they're going to make fun. They were all looking at me. And I was like, nope, I got to keep my composure and don't look at them. And I did it. And from that year on, we had reports from the shrine and the people who were working for us saying, where did you get that new announcer? He's really good. And, you should keep him. And then my first jacket was made. And from there, this is where I am today, right?
So, and what year was that? How old were you when you
It was 1987.
Wow.
I think it was. Yeah. I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually I didn't have a jacket of any kind. And Tarzan had in a box this burgundy pants and jacket with black rhinestones on it that I guess he had from France when he was very thin and he worked the tigers in this and he was like, I have this coat. And I put it on and I was like, wow, it fits me. And in the early publicity pictures, that's Tarzan's tiger jacket that he wore before he became Tarzan Zerbini, the Lord of the Jungle. He was John Charles Zerbini.
So I'm actually putting up a photograph right now of John Zerbini, Tarzan of the Big Top.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, this, we think of Tarzan Zerbini as obviously, an owner of a circus, someone who is a great animal trainer himself, but he's also your brother-in-law, right?
He's my brother-in-law. And at one time, he he was my father-in-law because we all know I was married to Sylvia and I have a beautiful daughter, Ambra, right? So a lot of people didn't understand that. Well, how can he be your brother-in-law and your father-in-law? Very simple. He married my sister and I paid him back by marrying his daughter. And that's how it goes. And that's how it all began.
Only in the circus, right?
Only in the circus. And, he's one of the most special people in our industry today. He's a living legend of the circus. He's here right now, and he's just as firecracker as he always has been, and he has done it all. He came over with Mills Brothers, I believe, in the '60s, with his family to perform, and in the beginning he wasn't Tarzan Zerbini, he was John Charles with these lions, and then it came that he needed to be the Lord of the Jungle, Tarzan. And boy, he changed his name legally to Tarzan Zerbini. And boy, from there, it just skyrocketed. And he was unbelievable. I remember as a child watching him and just couldn't wait for him to come on because he was, the one and only for what he did.
So I have to tell you, one of your cousins, Bello Knock, who is on the call right now, just texted that he thinks you're going to be remembered as one of the best ringmasters in history. So that's pretty high praise coming from Bello Knock.
I love you, Bello. I love you.
So, one of the things that obviously we see you and have for a number of years now, we've seen you at Circus Sarasota, which is kind of a unique situation in itself because it's really an opportunity. And I put up a picture of the program book from 2011 where you're on the cover of the program book.
Yeah.
And that must be interesting too, to go home and perform before that hometown crowd.
You have no idea. You have no idea what a heartwarming experience that was to be able to do both the talents that I was taught. That happened very early in my career. I enjoyed being the ringmaster, but I loved being up in the air and being on the wheel and the sway poles. And my dad and Tarzan said, well, then don't do it. close the show with the wheel, announce the show and do it. And I said, what? You think well, it's up to you. Can you get a phone booth back there and change into that wheel costume? And I did. Boy, I ran as fast as I could because I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to do something that nobody had ever done, because everybody sees the ringmaster, very flamboyant, that. And then at the end, he says goodbye, but nobody expected him to change into the superhero costume and now take you on a thrill ride. So that Circus Sarasota was wonderful and gracious to let me be featured in the production. Yeah, I've done it a couple times with them, and being in my hometown, being a couple miles from where I was born at Sarasota Memorial Hospital, and being able to entertain them doing the wheel and hosting the show was fantastic. I still get asked when I'm there hosting about the wheel by the audience because they remember it, and yeah, I couldn't have been happier. I love the Circus Arts Conservatory, Circus Sarasota, and that was a great year. I really had a good time.
So you mentioned earlier some of the people who you've had the privilege of working with, and also
Oh yeah,
those people who you acknowledged as being the greats. I've got a photograph up right now of you and Stroopy Hannaford.
oh wow,
And so obviously the Hannaford name
yeah,
is another one that goes back many generations.
many.
It must have been fun to work with Stroopy also.
Absolutely amazing. I was the Big E. That photo is at the Big E for Wayne McCary, and actually, that the Hannafords reached out to me and Wayne, and they wanted me there, and Stroopy was there, and it was just always such a great pleasure to come out and host that show at the Big E, and Wayne there, and Stroopy was there all the time. Spent many great evenings, made some soup for her a couple of times, some spaghetti. She had a birthday there, and they had a jumbo screen and showed her, as her in her days of her beautiful trapeze artist, amazing. She was a legend, of course, very close friend of our family. Tommy and Stroopy and all the Hannaford family, Vicky Hannaford, George Hannaford, Catherine, God bless her, and all of them, and to be working there with Stroopy, that was one of the only times I had ever announced a show for the Hannaford. It was the only time, actually.
At the Big E, Wayne McCary's
At the Big E for
show
Wayne
up there.
McCary, who's,
Spring-
I cherish every moment that I can work with him because I've done a few shows with him. He's had me come out to one of his big shows out in Salt Lake City, where Bello and I performed together for him. I celebrated my 50th birthday there. I celebrated my 55th birthday there. And I'm going to be 60, by the way, coming up in a couple of weeks.
Very young
And
looking picture, by the way.
Wayne, let's go back to Salt Lake, and do
You
another
know,
birthday.
we're talking about your cousins, and in addition to Bello, Octavio's on the call here today
All
as
right.
Michelangelo. So I mean, this is like circus royalty of 2025. When you think about how your family has continued in
Sure.
so many ways, because I always think about the fact that the Christiani family, and yes, there are
Mm,
Christianis who are still performing today for sure.
mm,
But
mm,
when you think back on how many Christianities there were,
mm.
there were a lot of people who had got out of the circus business. But
Sure.
you guys, it's in your blood, isn't it?
It's in our blood. On a bad day, you don't feel right. At the moment the lights come on and it's showtime for us, that all goes away. And we really got to carry on what these ancestors and amazing circus mentors paved the way for us. So we got to keep it going and keep them going strong. And Bello, you've seen, we all know what he can do and what he's done. So proud of him, and he's the finest. And all my cousins that are keeping it going, that really means a lot to me. I have just a couple cousins in Europe that also keep performing, and yeah, it means a lot to us. Even when we see our children, when we see all my cousins, we see our children up there performing and doing it. We can't believe it. I've had my daughter perform the wheel with me. She's done Liberty horses with a lyra hanging from the top. I mean, it is hard to do the act without crying sometimes because I can't believe it. Erica Zerbini, my niece, she's beautiful performing with her Liberty horses. So yeah, we're trying really hard. My son Dominic, he's right now in school and he's going to Sarasota Military Academy, but he's already climbed aboard the giant wheel, and I think it's in him too. It just needs a little more time. little more time.
So, when you think about the ringmaster and the role of the ringmaster, with
Uh,
with a few exceptions, you're the guy that's there the entire show, the person that really kind of holds it all together. How do
mhm.
you prepare for a show when new acts are coming in and things like maybe even acts you've never seen before?
Well, that it depends on the show. Like with Circus Sarasota, I always try and get as soon as I can the list of who's coming, get the bios, and then take that and put it into my own mix, into my own words, what feels comfortable for me. Because the one thing I've learned through the years by seeing some other shows and things that maybe even in a movie, giving too much information can be boring. Giving very powerful and important information to the audience about the act that they're going to see and the strongest accolades and how serious it is, I think is more important. So yeah, I put time into it, and Pedro and the Circuits Art, they've been very cool with me to let me. There might be once in a while they'll say, "Could you just mention that?" And I have no problem with that, but I like to put it in my rhythm.
And then occasionally something will happen that you're not expecting too. And it's your
Absolutely.
role as the ringmaster to kind of get things back on track.
Oh
Any
yes.
any incidents or any things that's happened recently or even in the past where it was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Sure, it happens all the time. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen where, even in this circus right here, it's the same. I'm being followed by the lights, and I'll keep my one of my eyes over to the ring. It happened actually yesterday. We had an incident with the double space wheel going up, and there was an incident with one of the motors who wasn't lifting it the right way. And I knew right away because I myself have been doing that for years. So I just went into a lot more about our show and where they can find information about our website and the tour schedule. And that is the part that really is important, that I did something during a glitch in the show and you didn't know about it. That's important. Then I've done my job, right?
You've performed all over the world, both
Mhm.
as a daredevil, as a ringmaster. Are audiences pretty much the same, or are they different? And you're in Canada right now tonight. Are they different in different parts of the world?
Absolutely. There's some places we come to where they're a little less noisy. Some are very noisy, and we played in Jersey at the Meadowlands. Those people were really making a lot of noise. And here in Canada, it's natural that they just love the circus. We don't go to Quebec right now, but we will be going back to Montreal next year for two or three locations. And that audience literally watches their clock. If it's 7:30, at 7:31 they start pounding. I mean, they want to see it now. Yeah, it happens, and we just go with it. We know then what might work and might not work. Even with the comedian in our show, he kind of feels it out and says, "Oh, I think I'm going to have to go right to that." Sure, but in a general format, this show and the way that we presented, we just had a great response from the crowd, and I really love it. Yeah.
The Royal Canadian Circus, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's a fantastic show. We start in April around Eastern Canada, Western Canada. We start. We come into Edmonton, Alberta. We play Calgary, and we move our way right towards the center to Winnipeg, and then over here to Ontario. And then we get to Ontario, and we stay here for almost 2.5 months. We don't close till September 1st. And yeah, it's been a long time. Tarzan's been coming here with his beautiful big top. He was one of the first to bring an Italian big top to Canada before Cirque du Soleil. It was the first Canobio tent. Was a show called Tivoli, lasted 1 year, and Tarzan had bought everything they had, seats, two tents, everything. So literally, it was the first tent of its style in Canada. And he's been coming here 40 years now. And, I've been coming here myself for, wow, at least 35 of those years. And yeah, it's become really something special. And, it's funny because tonight in the show at intermission, I kind of chat with the people a little bit. And there are many, many people from Ontario that come down to Circus Sarasota. And it works both ways. At the book signing there, I'll say, "We saw you in Toronto at the Royal Canadian Circus." And just now here, I had the same thing happen. So there are circus goers out there that don't just come to one. They really love the circus and they know which ones to go see.
So you've
So,
seen also, you look back at your career. I mean, you said that, you know, 50 some years ago, you and your father
Yeah.
performed the first time. So when you look back at how the circus has evolved, which it always has evolved
Mhm.
from the very beginning. In your estimation, as you talk to these different acts and so forth, where are the new acts coming from?
The new acts are coming still from all over. I mean, times are a little can be challenging with visas and with all that stuff is a lot of work. People have no idea what a show goes into to bring some of this stuff. We have a Mongolian troupe with us with nine Mongolian teeter board and jump rope that we're featuring this year, and it was a lot of work. So we have artists from Colombia. We have artists from everywhere. I mean, but South America seems to be, we have a lot of artists from South America, from Argentina. We have an act this year that we've never had any artists from Ecuador doing our double wheel, and yeah. So I think it's from everywhere. And we're going to be having next year some new artists from Europe, and so we're excited about that. We really are.
Well, Joseph Dominik Bauer Jr., Sepe, it's been terrific. Oh, we have Octavio Gazmundo said that it was incredible to finally be able to work with you at Sarasota,
You
Circus
know, we,
Sarasota last year.
if I have a little time left, I have to tell you about Ottavio. We went to school together. My cousin John, myself, and Ottavio. And really, when he was young, he was Ottovino. And I know he's laughing right now because he always says, "I can't believe you call me that still." But I found something this winter that I showed to Ottavio, brought tears to both of our eyes. When I was born in 1965, my uncles and my dad were in Puyallup, Washington at the state fair performing three sway poles. And my dad had to perform the dive of death that my mother did because she was down in Sarasota, Florida, having me. Well, she was down there with Mama Canestrelli. And my Aunt Aurelia was down there because I believe Michelangelo was going to be born also that time. Well, Mama Canestrelli took care of my mom, which was Ottavia's grandmother. And when I was born, she went, got a telegram, sent it to Puyallup, Washington, and wrote, "To Joseph Bauer, you have a son. He's 10 pounds, 6 ounces, everything all okay, and mama okay." Well, I found that telegram and I brought it to Ottavio and I said, "Look at the name on the bottom." And he was just blown away, from his grandmother sending it to my dad. And I was born, it was a family moment, and it was great to work with him. The acts that he does with his wife, it's just fantastic. But we really had a really good time being together. Yeah.
And Octavio and his lovely wife have promised to appear with us on a future issue of edition of Circus History Live also. So they'll be coming on very soon. I want to put up one final photograph here. And I was there the night that this happened. And this is a photograph of you and your aunt Aurelio Knock. This
Hmm.
is the mother of Bello and Michelangelo and
Hmm.
Eugene Knock. And you had just recognized her at Circus Sarasota. And wow, what a
Hmm.
touching moment that was for us. But I can
Hmm.
only imagine what it was like for you and your family.
Oh, it was, yeah, it brings tears. Bella was there. Uh, Michelangelo and his family was there. And it was a moment that I thought, this is the opportunity I have. She's sitting right there to just take it into my own hands and do what I really want to do coming from the soul. And it was great. She stood up, she took her flamboyant bow,
Yes, she
and
did.
the rest came over and gave her hugs and kisses, and the audience absolutely loved it. But I know what meant the most was to her. It really meant a lot to her.
It
To
did. I know
you
it
know,
did.
you know, I'm so
Well,
proud of our family and what they've accomplished. I have to tell you, I
and
really am.
continue to accomplish too.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Joseph Dominik Bauer Jr., thank you for being our guest on Circus History Live. Again,
Thank
Circus
you.
History Live is a monthly program that we do here for the Circus Historical Society. If you're interested in
Mm.
joining the Circus Historical Society, I'd urge you to go to circushistory.org. And if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to us, and then you'll know anytime we do a new edition of Circus History Live also. I'm going to turn it back over to our president, Bruce Hawley, who I think has a few final words.
Thank you so much, Joseph. This was a fantastic program. I
Thank
really,
you so
really,
much. Thank you
really
for having me.
appreciate it. And I know our audience did. You could see by the comments, and it was just so touching to have all your cousins and Wayne McCary
Yeah.
and various producers around the world
Mhm.
come on to watch with all of us. So it was fantastic. I'd also like to thank
Thank you.
Chris Berry, our host, who does a great job, and behind the scenes, Anya Norris, who does all of our post production and social media and the recording. The recording for this program will be up available probably on Tuesday morning. So watch our Facebook group and YouTube channel for this recording. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for attending tonight's program. As Chris mentioned earlier, our organization is growing. We've got lots of folks who are very much interested in all aspects of circus history, and it's very gratifying to see so many new members coming on. If you're not already a member, please consider joining. It's only $60 a year. You get a copy of our quarterly journal, The Bandwagon, which is beautiful, and can keep up on all the latest in circus history. And finally, we are scheduled to have our annual convention in Las Vegas this year, October 22nd through 25th. And many of you may not realize this, and Joseph, I'm not sure if you know, but we're actually doing this one in connection with the Vegas Variety Circus Festival. So
Oh, wow.
this is the first time we've had a convention that's actually aligned with one of the festivals that is going on. And this is, to my knowledge, the third festival in the United States right now. So
Mhm.
we're very happy to do that with the Vegas Variety Circus Festival folks, Maxime Papazov and his group. And against the 22nd through the 25th of October in Las Vegas. It's going to be a great program. We've got lots of speakers. I think we have 16 speakers and all kinds of presentations. So if you like circus history and you'd like to join us, please go to our website, circushistory.org, and click on the convention page and sign up. I'll give Chris, do you have any final comments?
Just we'll see you down the road.
And Joseph?
Hey, may all your days be circus days, right?
I love it. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and we'll see you down the road.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.